The mistake. The Drexari flagship Vornkai drifted silently above the cratered moon, its hull bristling with weapons and pride. Inside, the ship's command chamber buzzed with alien celebration. They had done what no other Drexari squad had before, captured a living human. Not killed. Captured. Commander Zurich stood at the viewport, his armored hands clasped behind his back, tail flicking with satisfaction. Primitive creatures, he muttered, watching the blue-green planet rotate far below. Too long have they escaped our grasp. Behind him, the captive cell was sealed in reinforced alloy, guarded by 2 Drexari sentinels armed with plasma spears. Inside, Sergeant Mason Ward sat motionless on a slab of synthetic stone, breathing evenly despite the bleeding cut on his forehead and bruised ribs. Zurich turned toward the observation glass. Human. You understand me, yes. Mason's eyes opened, sharp and alert. You speak English pretty well for a walking lizard, he said calmly. Zurich's lip curled. You are now a guest of the Drexari Empire. You'll answer our questions, demonstrate your weapons, and submit to biological scans. Cooperate, and you may live long enough to witness our conquest of Earth. Mason tilted his head. You really think this is a win, don't you? You are the first. A valuable prize. The humans fear us. That much is obvious. Mason chuckled, the sound low and humorless. You've made a mistake. Zurich turned sharply. What did you say? You should have killed me. Now you've brought me inside your walls. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming like cold steel. You brought me home. 3 decks below, Drexari science officers examined Mason's blood under glowing instruments. His cells resisted their chemical probes, healed faster than expected. One technician noted heightened neural activity in his frontal cortex, something they dismissed as an anomaly. Humans are volatile, warned the medic caste elder. There are records, wars, catastrophes. And yet they burn their own worlds for sport, scoffed the chief researcher. Barely evolved mammals. This one's just defective. Back in his cell, Mason sat cross-legged. Every sound around him mattered. Every guard rotation. Every hiss of hydraulics. Every flicker in the power grid. They didn't understand what they'd taken. They thought he was a soldier. They didn't know he was a survivor. Hours passed. The Drexari settled into routine. Their curiosity waned, their guards relaxed. One sentinel played a crude hologame on his wrist pad, turning away from the cell door. Mason moved. It started small, a fragment of metal from the food tray, wedged into the synthetic joint of the bench. He'd noticed it earlier, ignored it, waited. Now it was in his palm, twisted between 2 fingers, shaped by sheer will and friction. With precision born of years in Black Ops infiltration units, Mason unlocked the inner hatch of his cell. The door didn't swing open, it hissed slightly, just enough. One guard turned. What? The jagged metal shard embedded itself in his throat. The second reached for his weapon, too late. Mason took the spear from the dying alien and buried it in the other's chest with a grunt. He didn't linger. By the time the alarm sounded, Mason was already in the maintenance crawlspace, crawling through coils of alien tubing and exposed plasma conduits. Sweat stung his eyes, blood crusted on his knuckles. But he smiled. They thought they had captured a human. They hadn't captured a man. They'd captured a war. In the control room, panic replaced pride. He's loose. Commander Zurich barked. Yes, Commander, stammered a subordinate. Deck 7 airlocks disabled. 2 squads lost. We believe he is armed. Zurich stared at the feed. Static. Then an image. A human face, bloodied, staring directly into the camera. Mason's voice came through, distorted but clear. You shouldn't have opened the door. Then the screen went dark. Zurich snarled, smashing the console with a clawed fist. Their prize had become a predator. And the hunt had just begun. The turn. The Vornkai groaned as emergency klaxons wailed through the corridors. Red lights pulsed like a heartbeat. In the command deck, Drexari officers scrambled for control. None spoke. None blinked. They all felt it. Something had gone wrong. Something inside their ship was hunting them. Sergeant Mason Ward crouched in the shadows of the ventilation shaft, watching through a grated panel as 4 Drexari soldiers passed beneath. They moved with rigid precision, their plasma rifles humming faintly. He waited, counted their steps, memorized their pattern. 3 seconds between rear guard turns. He dropped silently behind the last one. A knife, stolen from a surgical tray, flashed once. The Drexari crumpled before it could speak. Mason grabbed the alien's rifle, adjusted its unfamiliar grip, and vanished before the others noticed. On Deck 9, Drexari Command relayed footage of the attack to the security hubs. In seconds, confusion turned into fear. "He knows our deck layout," a lieutenant muttered. "That's impossible," said another. "He's been here less than 1 rotation." Commander Zurich's voice sliced through the tension. "This is not a creature. This is a trained infiltrator. He is exploiting our order, our predictability." A silence settled in. They had assumed the human was a savage. But now, their own warship was being turned into a maze of death. Mason moved with brutal efficiency. He sabotaged gravlifts, cutting power to secondary decks. He poured corrosive coolant from a ruptured pipe into a Drexari barracks, driving survivors into kill zones. He left bodies in strategic locations, forcing the crew to second-guess every corridor, every hatch. He wasn't just escaping. He was dismantling them. In the reactor chamber, Mason ducked behind a fusion coil, working quickly with tools stolen from engineering. His fingers moved with practiced speed. He wasn't trying to blow the ship, yet. Not while he could still learn more. He'd tapped into their internal data stream. Translations flooded his stolen wristpad. Navigation logs, ship schematics, tactical plans, and one particular file labeled Human Contingency Protocols. He read it with rising rage. Autopsy guidelines, neural dissection instructions, bioweapon compatibility studies. They hadn't captured him for intel. They had captured him for harvesting. His jaw tightened. "No mercy," he whispered. In the Drexari medical bay, the chief researcher trembled as lights flickered. A distorted voice filled the room, broadcast through the intercom system. "You studied us like cattle," Mason's voice crackled. "Ran tests. Took notes. Thought we were simple." The lights went out. Screams followed. Back on the bridge, chaos reigned. Zurich's top officers had stopped speaking in ranks. They shouted over one another, fearful, panicked. "The crew is breaking. He is one human." Zurich slammed his fist into the central console. "And that one has killed over 20 elite warriors. We were the hunters. Now we are prey." He turned to the ship's AI unit. "Lock down all non-essential decks. Vent the maintenance tunnels. He is using them." "Negative," the AI replied. "Maintenance system access has been overridden." "By who?" "By the human." Inside the armory, Mason exhaled as the final lock disengaged. Rows of Drexari weapons lined the walls, plasma rifles, micromines, energy blades. "Finally," he muttered, slinging a rifle over his shoulder and grabbing 2 mines. The Drexari fought like war beasts, head-on, brutal, direct. He didn't. He fought like a ghost. 10 minutes later, Deck 7 exploded. The blast was surgical, timed to rupture a coolant main and disable propulsion. Mason had calculated the weak point using Drexari heat mapping from their own tactical files. As the ship lurched violently, lights across half the decks went dark. The Vornkai was no longer a warship. It was a tomb in orbit. Zurich's claws dug into the metal of his command chair. "Where is he now?" "No trace, Commander. He moves between decks faster than our scanners can recalibrate." "Then stop recalibrating. Seal the ship. Jettison everything. I want him gone." A voice came through the comms again. "Mason, you wanted to learn about humans. Lesson 1, corner a wolf and you meet its teeth." The comms died. Zurich stood, for the first time, truly afraid. This was not war. This was a message. Mason paused in a dark corridor, his breath slow and steady. He stared through a viewport at the stars beyond, and Earth's faint blue glimmer in the distance. He'd get back. But not before they understood. They could invade 100 worlds. They could conquer 1,000 species. But they would never again forget what it meant to capture a human. The reckoning. Smoke curled through the shattered halls of the Vornkai. The once impenetrable Drexari flagship now groaned under its own weight, wounded, bleeding plasma and fire. Bulkheads sparked. Doors jammed. Fear thickened the air like poison. Sergeant Mason Ward moved like a shadow. He no longer needed stealth. He wanted them to hear him now. To know. This was the cost of their arrogance. Zurich stood hunched over the command dais, claws tapping against metal. His left eye bled, the price of a console that had exploded mid-command. Officers barked panicked reports. Entire decks offline, life support failing on levels 4 through 6. He barely heard them. All his thoughts were on the human. They had taken a predator into their home. They thought they'd captured prey. They'd captured vengeance. Below the bridge, Mason rewired the final charge. A Drexari microfusion cell, ripped from a power node, now hummed quietly inside a maintenance shaft. Just 2 more and he'd sever primary power. The ship would go cold. And with it, any hope of regaining control. As he worked, his mind flashed to Earth. To the last mission. He saw the ambush again, his team cornered by Drexari drones, outnumbered, outgunned. He remembered Carter bleeding out beside him, whispering, "Don't let them take us. Promise me." He had made that promise. And now, he was keeping it. The Drexari tried to fight back. Zurich dispatched kill squads with pulse cannons and recon drones. But none returned. They weren't trained for this. They weren't soldiers. They were conquerors, used to resistance folding beneath brute force. Mason fought differently. He set traps, pressure charges under grates, plasma grenades rigged to open doors, gas leaks ignited at just the right moment. One squad entered an elevator. They didn't leave it. Inside the ship's AI chamber, Mason activated a Drexari terminal, cracked open using a melted blade tip and sheer stubbornness. The interface flickered. Command, external comm override, pending clearance. He smiled grimly. Let's make sure Earth knows what happened here. He uploaded coordinates, visuals of the ship's internal damage, and a brief audio clip. To Earth Command, Ward, Mason. Drexari vessel compromised. Onboard threat neutralizing itself. Await further transmission. Also, tell Carter's wife he kept his promise. He ended the message. Then he locked out the Drexari's comms entirely. No one else was getting out. On the bridge, Zurich watched his empire collapse in real time. 3 life pods had already launched, cowards, abandoning the ship. He killed the 4th officer who tried. "He's dismantling us," whispered his second-in-command. "One man." Zurich didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on a new line of script scrolling across the central display. "We are not prey." Carved in human letters. Burned into their navigation logs. A message. And a warning. Mason sealed the AI core with a manual override. They couldn't regain control now, even if they killed him. Not that they would. He had no intention of dying here. He had already found the scout ship docked in Bay 3, a Drexari recon vessel. Small. Fast. Functional. Just needed a launch sequence and a distraction. He checked the final charge on his wrist pad. Detonation in 6 minutes. Enough time to disappear. Enough time to make a point. Zurich stood alone now. Most of the crew were dead. The rest were silent, hiding in crawlspaces or sobbing in armories they no longer knew how to use. He looked out at the stars, the weight of failure pressing against his shoulders. Then the lights died. The Vornkai went black. In that darkness, he heard the final voice transmission echo through every remaining speaker. "You wanted to dissect us. Study us. Break us. Now you've learned your lesson. You don't cage a human. You invite extinction." Then silence. The ship ruptured. Controlled charges turned its spine inward. Fire raced through its length. Explosive decompression tore open the lower decks. Escape pods, sabotaged earlier, spiraled into the gravity well of the nearby gas giant. From a safe distance, Mason watched the destruction through the scout ship's viewport. He didn't flinch. He had left no survivors. Not because he was cruel, but because they wouldn't have done the same for him. He turned earthward. A long journey ahead. Maybe others to warn. Or to hunt. He didn't know yet. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would remember the Vorn Kai. And the human who turned a capture into a reckoning. The silence. The wreckage of the Vorn Kai drifted silently in the void, a blackened carcass twisting slowly in orbit above the dead moon. Fires no longer burned. Signals no longer pulsed. The once proud flagship of the Drexari fleet was now nothing but scorched alloy and shattered arrogance. And it was silent. When the neutral salvage vessel Krell that's Dawn arrived 3 cycles later, its crew expected resistance. Instead, they found a graveyard. Captain Lura of the Krell that stood motionless as she stared at the view feed. Her second-in-command zoomed in on the hull. Scrawled across the exterior plating, burned in with plasma, were human letters. "We are not prey." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Inside, the salvage team floated cautiously through the corridors, suits sealed tight. The Drexari corpses were everywhere, some dismembered, some burned, others simply curled in corners as if they had died of fear itself. There were no signs of a firefight. No siege. No opposing force. Just one name, again and again, etched into bulkheads, terminals, even skin in some places. "Ward. Is that a human designation?" one technician asked. "Yes," Captain Lura answered, her voice low. "It's a name." News of the destruction spread faster than the fire that gutted the Vorn Kai. Across the Drexari Empire, systems went quiet. No new invasions. No raids. No broadcasts. Only silence. And behind the silence, a growing fear. Drexari military intelligence attempted to erase the incident. They denied the ship's fate. They labeled it a power failure and core malfunction. But the truth had already slipped out, through salvage logs, rogue transmissions, and the unmistakable terror in the eyes of the few survivors who had escaped via shuttle before the final blast. Those few were broken. And all they said was this: "He moved like death." In the council chambers on Drexari Prime, the high strategist stood before the War Council. "The humans have done what no empire ever has. One of them breached our flagship and dismantled it from within. Alone." Some scoffed. Others shifted in their seats. "They are few," one general barked. "A species clinging to the edge of their spiral arm." "And yet," the strategist replied, "this one showed us what one of them can do." He paused. "Imagine a battalion." Silence followed. Then the order was given: suspend all operations against the Terran territories. Indefinitely. Back on Earth, the message Mason Ward sent before his escape reached the Terran Defense Command. It triggered an immediate escalation in human readiness. Not out of fear, but pride. Ward had done more than escape. He had shattered the myth of Drexari's superiority. He'd exposed their weaknesses, killed their elite, and turned their most powerful vessel into a warning beacon. His file was sealed. His mission classified. But within the inner circle of command, a single line had been added to the official record. Hostile first contact resolved. Human asset active. Mission success. Mason Ward stood on the deck of the stolen Drexari scout ship, now gutted and retrofitted for Terran use. The stars stretched out before him, cold and vast. Earth was still weeks away at sublight speed, but he wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't sure he wanted to go back. He had changed. Earth would want to parade him, debrief him, break him down into data. Turn him into a symbol. A weapon. Maybe they should. But first, he had another destination. He keyed a set of new coordinates into the NAV system, one of the smaller Drexari forward bases, still unprepared, still arrogant. "Let's see if they got the message," he muttered. A transmission pinged in his ship's buffer. Encrypted. Earth command. Ward. Priority green. Target confirmed. Drexari listening post Sigma 12. Engage at discretion. Remember, you are not prey. Mason smiled. "No," he said quietly. "Not anymore." He throttled the ship forward, stars streaking past the viewport. The war wasn't over. But now they knew. The next time the Drexari saw a human, it would be the last time.